If you're listening, if you happen to record radio shows, I would pay $1,000 for your radio show from that. I would pay more than $1,000 for your radio show. Speaking of which, he was on the mound when it happened. One Brad Lidge joins us. Brad, we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be with you guys.
So before we get started on actually, we were just talking about '08. You have a new card coming out, the Lights Out card, which they're making 2008 of them. And you can buy it. You can see it, all that stuff at SpectorSportsCardArt.com. 54 of them signed by you, 98 signed by you and Ruiz. The thing that I think is cool is some of them have pieces of the baseballs from the World Series, which I think is cool. Were they where did they get the baseballs?
Yeah, well, so they're from the playoffs. They're not from the World Series, but they are from the NLDS and the NLCS. And so, so let me explain that a little better. So Jordan and I were thinking about, kind of a cool, different way to have something more on these cards. And, you see those baseball cards these days that have quote unquote game used memorabilia and that type of thing. But so I was kind of looking at my personal collection, and there's some things in there that will remain in there forever. But then I was also kind of thinking about, it might be freaking awesome to kind of pull some of these things out of my collection that I still value a ton, but it might be awesome to be able to give these back to the fans a little bit. So I have baseballs that I kept after each game.
Oh, so they're yours. They're literally your ball.
They're my baseballs. Yeah, from finishing up the games and from the NLDS and the getting those outs to advance to the next series. And so I took the baseballs out of there, and right after the games, I marked them with a pen just so I would remember them for my own collection. And I thought, the fans obviously in Philly have given me so much over the years. I thought it might be cool for them to kind of have these baseballs on that card so they can hold a piece of 2008 themselves from that postseason run we made. And it ended up being awesome. It was quite a process, I think, a manufacturing process to be able to get those, a big piece of those baseballs on the cards themselves. But, Jordan Spector did an unbelievable job. The art is incredible. I mean, each one of these cards is a piece of art for sure. And, he did an awesome job getting a lot of variations and everything else in these cards. So it's been a really fun project.
So again, that is SpectorSportsCardArt.com. It's wild to see cards where they are too. Like when I was I'm 48. So when I was growing up, the cards were a huge deal. I actually bought my first car buying and selling baseball cards. Were you a card guy growing up?
So I'm 48 also. So, we survived, I think, that era of late 80s and early 90s.
Yes,
where,
sir.
Baseball cards are completely worthless from that era, I feel like. But, so I definitely did. And I think, one thing that's kind of true about these two is there's, these really cool, kind of hologram, finishes on them as well. And they kind of provide this kind of nostalgic feeling because I think that first started in around the early 90s or something. But it's kind of a throwback in that way for me, but also with all the current really cool things that you can actually put on cards. So Jordan designed them all, and he I got to kind of see the process as it was kind of going along, his artwork, and then all the little subtle variations he'd put on everything, and to create these cards. And so it was really cool to see how the whole thing broke down.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't believe they're your baseballs. That's a cool addition to that. Not having the balls is cool, but the fact that they were yours is neat as well. So today, the anniversary of winning the World Series. Do you? How much of that moment do you actually remember, and how much is just a blur?
Well, I remember it pretty well. I try to make a conscious effort of, you watch the replay of the game, as often as I've seen it, it's easy to kind of remember it from, the camera's perspective instead of my own.
Yeah.
But I'll make a conscious effort to go back into my mind every once in a while and kind of think about, when I was gripping that pitch and kind of what we were talking about on the mound before I faced Hinsky and everything that was going on. But it was a blur. It was a crazy, couple days we had to wait with the rain and everything else. But I still remember it well. I can't believe it's been 16 years. Honestly, that makes me feel a little bit older. But at the same time, it's it kind of reminds you that it's really tough to win a World Series, and especially nowadays in this era. I mean, it's a tricky thing to do. Just because you're a great team doesn't always guarantee stuff. But, we were very fortunate that at that time we were all kind of coming into our, we were all having a great season, and we just, I had this incredible defense behind me. I know I felt just incredibly confident every time I went out to the mound that no matter what was going to happen, that we were going to get the right result was going to ensue. And it was just an incredible season, and culminating with a dream come true. It's something you dream about since you're a kid.
I always wonder with you, Brad, you got through that season perfect. Forget about that All-Star game. You got through that season perfect when it came to save opportunity. See, we remember everything. But I always wonder with you, when you got into the postseason, particularly when you get to the NLCS and into the World Series, how do you keep it from creeping into your mind that you haven't blown a save yet, and you certainly don't want to do it at this point in time, this late in the postseason? Did you have to sort of, I guess, fight against that sort of instinct being there in your head that, man, don't let this be the time that I blow a save?
Well, you know what? If for some reason I was able to block it out, the media was not going to let that happen.
So, you're welcome.
Say they brought it up all the time.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. They brought it up, before every game, I felt like, in the postseason. But, for a while I was trying to fight against, thinking about it. And I was like, just let it go. Just trust your process. The whole year you've been doing the same routine. You've been going out there, taking everything just pitch by pitch, never getting ahead of yourself, and really just being in the moment. So if it happened, that would suck, but fortunately it didn't. And it's somewhere in the back of your mind, you're aware. As the season progressed, as the playoffs progressed, as we got to the World Series, this would be a hell of a time to blow it. But fortunately that didn't happen. And, like I said, the belief was always there, and I trusted the process and all the work I had put into it. And I believe we were, truly, because of the defense we had and everything else, I believe that no matter what was going to happen, even if, in a one-run game there was a leadoff triple, I still felt like we were going to get the save.
Talking to Brad Lidge, obviously on the 60th anniversary of the 08 World Series. Brad, there was a time in the middle of the season, you guys scored 20 runs against the Cardinals on June 13th, and then from June 14th on, you went 3-11. Offense kind of struggled a little bit. Myers got sent down. What was going on in that clubhouse to where you guys pulled yourself out of that and got back to being the team that we'd seen for a majority of that season?
It's a good question. I remember that stretch. I don't remember us panicking too much, but I do remember, when Brett got sent down, everyone was like, oh, okay, everyone has to play better because, look, I'd been on teams, in Houston in 2007, a lot of guys that I was good friends with that got sent down or traded or whatever, and I for one remember hey, you know what? You start playing bad baseball and nobody's safe in this clubhouse. So I think collectively, we were aware that we had a really good team, and I was aware how good we were offensively. So I think, collectively we kind of felt like just keep going out there, trusting the process. The results will start to happen. It's, 162 game season. There's no chance that you're going to get through it without a bad stretch. I don't care if you're the 27 Yankees or whoever, you're going to have a bad stretch, but you just got to limit that. And, you got to make sure that each guy's being accountable and making sure that they're going out there and playing their best every single night. But I think we had, a fairly, and it wasn't a young team, but it was a team with a lot of guys that had a lot to prove. And then it was a lot of superstars to be that were coming into that season that was really launching them into that spot. So everyone just had a lot of energy, I think, and a lot of mental focus.
So you mentioned how hard it is to win a World Series. We're going through that now as we're watching the team. The Phillies this year, I would say they had a lot of strengths, but going into the playoffs, the one thing we as a show all felt the most confident in was the bullpen. And then we get to that Mets series and just, Hoffman and Strahm, and it went haywire. When you were watching that, first of all, I'm sure you had some empathy having been a reliever, but was there something that you saw that they were not doing during the playoffs that they did during the regular season? I guess we're all just trying to figure out what happened.
It's a great question, right? And I watched, of course, every pitch and was thinking about, as the relievers were coming out there, I was trying to go through the inning and through the approach with them and kind of thinking what they were going to do. The one thing that I think might be something that probably needs to change, because these are very talented relievers. I mean, for stretches in baseball, I'd say they had the best bullpen in baseball. But in the postseason, when you're facing an extremely hot team coming in, like the Mets, you have to change something. You can't just do the same things you've been doing. I mean, you can, for a couple hitters or for maybe even the first game, but if they continue to operate at that super high level and they're as hot as they can be, you've got to start changing what you're doing. You can no longer rely on the same, analytics that you looked at all year long, because they're not working in that moment. And you have to go out there and just kind of have a feel, and you have to start pitching, and you have to start thinking like, the analytics say to do this, but like that's not. I can see that that's not going to work with how hot this hitter is right now. I need to do something different. So I think sometimes we're especially bullpens now, and I don't just like blame the Phillies bullpen for this. This is just true across the board, it seems like. But these hot teams coming in, the bullpens will go out there and they'll do the same things they've been doing. But when a team is really hot, it doesn't work. So that's when you start throwing a ball in off the plate, making hitters not feel comfortable, and then seeing the reaction from that. But sometimes you can lose the feel of pitching itself a little bit, the art of pitching itself, and just get too reliant on just trying to throw everything the exact same way because it's worked all year long. You don't want to go into the playoffs and change things if they've been working for you, but at the same time, we are seeing now that super hot teams that come in, you need to figure out a different way to pitch guys when they're super hot. So you just kind of have to have that feel, and you got to know when you go out there that you might have to change something that day, and that's okay. Talking to Brad Lidge on the 16th anniversary of the Phillies winning the 2008 World Series. The Phillies have, over the last few years, not had a lot of guys, I guess, in different roles. So the Phillies bullpen, not everyone knew who was going to be the closer one night, or it might be a different guy another night. As a reliever, is that something that is difficult to prepare for if you know you might get used in a different situation that you may be comfortable in? Well, I mean, it would have been maybe for me back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, whatever, when I knew I was going to close. I like to be fully ready for that. But I think we see enough bullpens and enough bullpen pitchers these days that go with that approach, that guys have kind of been able to be flexible and adaptable to it. This isn't like, well, I would say this, it's probably been going on for 6, 7, 8 years, where it's becoming more and more of a trend to not have one guy unless you have, a dominant closer at the end of games, which only maybe, 8, 10 teams have. For all the other teams, 2/3 of them, they're going to use whichever guy is best in that moment, which to me makes sense. And as long as the bullpen has, buy-in toward it, then it should be fine. Is it a little bit trickier to stay ready for innings, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Yeah, it is. I mean, it takes more mental energy and everything else, but at the same time, that's what guys have to do nowadays. It would be nice, though, to have, one guy at the back end of the games that you knew was going to throw the ninth, and everybody in their roles before that. I think it's a little more settling as a bullpen as a whole. All right, Brad, last one. The Phillies offense has been great at times over the last few years, but they have been subject to these cold streaks. And one of the things that both Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson said after the season is they need to do better and have more of a commitment to using the whole field and having a different approach at the plate. However, most of their players are either in their prime, maybe at the back end of their prime. Is plate approach and using all, the whole field, is that something that players can adjust to and change later in their career? Or does a different approach mean different players? Well, I think, certain hitters are able to make that, adaptation a little bit quicker than others. For some guys, ask him to do something entirely different towards the end of their career, it's not going to breed success. And it's also not something you can all of a sudden just change when the postseason comes around. Although you can change your approach, a little bit. Just as the bullpen guys need to come out and maybe have a little bit different feel, there needs to be offensive players perhaps that come out there and say, you know what, swinging for, the home run every single pitch at this moment is not going to work. And I'm not saying they're doing that, but if that's been your recipe all year long, then maybe something needs to change up a little bit. But it's not just the Phillies, it's kind of everybody across baseball has that approach, right? So yeah, I think you would probably need, it'd be tough to ask certain guys, put it this way, to all of a sudden start, trying to lay bunts down the third base line or try and, slap a ball to left field if they haven't done it all year long, or if they haven't done it in their entire career and they've been playing 8-9 seasons. So if that's the case, then you would probably have to get a different guy or two if that was the recipe, if that's what they feel they needed to do to have success in the postseason. I would personally like to see the same guys we have be able to make a little bit subtle change in their, their two-strike approach when it comes down to it in the postseason.
All right, Brad. Well, we appreciate your time, man. Of the iconic images in Philadelphia sports, there's Brandon Graham hitting the ball out of Tom Brady's hand. There's the Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue, and you on your knees with your hands in the air celebrating the World Series. I think brings back chills and great memories for all of us. So, so thank you for that, and we appreciate your time today, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Hey guys, I appreciate you too, and we'll see what happens with the Phillies this offseason, but in the meantime, go Eagles.
Yes. All right.
All right, brother.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Mm-hmm. Again, you can get that card. You can see it and get it at SpectorSportsCardArt.com. I wonder.
I always like Brad Lidge.
Dude, he's the best. And
had the one great year for us.
Yes.
Man. Really? Was he with us about as long as he was with Houston?
So he's with us until 11. So 08, 09, 10, 11. So 4 seasons. I think he's
4 seasons.
He's an Astro in 03 to 07. So 4 and 4.
Yeah, almost, yeah. He won the World Series with us.
Yeah.